So I feel like racism is more pronounced in America. The disease is still there. It's the same disease, but it just manifests in a different way. And British culture is way more reserved, so it's more systematic. I think in America you have the systematic and then you have the overt. But also the history of America is to do with race relations. Whilst a lot of the people that are within London have come from, like my family's from Uganda, come from Africa, come from Caribbean. So they've come from this culture and they've kind of like usually come from the Commonwealth and have been colonized by the West. So we're like navigating that. But it's why a lot of Black British artists are in America. It's not seen in England, but it's felt and it's oppressive and it stops you from becoming your best you at times.
I think that when we talk about race, we tend to focus on individual acts of prejudice, which is why UKIP often come up because they'll overtly say stuff that we find offensive. But unfortunately, the issue of race, if we understand it, is a lot more insidious. And it takes a lot more of a historical view to understand the difference between individual bias and structural racism and privilege. And the idea of Great Britain was intimately tied to the fact that Britain's invaded almost every country on the earth, literally. No, literally, there's a map, you can Google it. And so the idea of our greatness was intimately tied to this idea of empire.
I think that it's the tabloid press who have taken a particular tone with Meghan Markle and from the very beginning wanted to allude to the fact that she had African heritage and that this was something that really threatened continuity within the royal family. And then when they decided that they didn't like her, the constant attacking of her as a very visible minority, as the only person in my lifetime of African heritage to occupy that position in a senior level in the royal family, embodied so much of the sometimes subconscious racism, the othering, weaponizing ideas about crime, even the way that this is being discussed, that she's dragging him away from his family.
In Britain, as a young black kid, there weren't any black people on television. There was very few depictions of black success. On British television. So as a working class first generation immigrant child, my expectations of what I could do were really quite basic. I thought it was probably a factory or an assembly line or, I didn't even think it was possible for me to be an actor. So, I just hadn't, so if they hadn't have suggested it, I certainly wouldn't have tried to do it. I just would have thought that stuff was off limits to me.
By talking about racism is not causing divide. There's a divide anyway.
What's the first word that enters your mind when you think about racism? Inequality, separation, hate, target. Racism is a disease which has been spreading for decades. It roots people's brains to believe we are not all one. With such hatred comes underrepresentation in many industries, leading to all the ethnic communities to feel less than equal. For the last few months, we have been working on getting our voices out there. Enough is enough. We shouldn't have to fight for our place or our voice to be heard. It shouldn't even be a discussion. Over in Gloucester, youth between the ages of 14 to 20 have come together and worked on a project to tell their story and create awareness for this issue. Hello, my name is Maheen Rasool.
Hi, I'm Janae. I'm Command, also known as Kate.
My name is Shamal Askar.
My name's Skylar. Hello, my name is Alyssa.
My first experience with racism was when I was in year 2 at the age of 6.
At my school, there is lots of ignorance and racism that is in the form of microaggressions. Sometimes I feel like this can be dismissed and lead to ridiculous questions about my hair. For example, like, why have you got curly hair?
I never really grasped the concept of race at that point, but I quickly learned that I have a lot of challenges that I will now be facing because of my skin colour.
Something that I would like to change is how young people have to grow up being taught how to live and how they're told how to deal with racism. And I don't really like how children have to have the talk.
Let's take some time to introduce some more of the team. The team is full of many other amazing young individuals like Dominic, Suchit and more. Each individual has worked very hard in this group to express themselves. Head over to the link provided to read about all their stories and how they want to create change in today's corrupt society.
I'm Kamala Cephas. I'm a family law solicitor. I've worked in the legal profession for over 20 years now. For me, I have seen underrepresentation within the legal profession, more so within the Gloucestershire area. I found that within my area of family law, and especially at the level I am, being a director, that we are very far and few between in terms of how many black solicitors there are, and also those at director level. It's definitely something that for me I'd like to see more of. Also in the judiciary, I go to court regularly, and unfortunately we don't see that representation of black judges. And I know for people who find themselves in the unfortunate situation of being in the family court system, they want to feel like their solicitor, their barrister, the judge understands them, knows a bit about their culture and background. And so it's definitely important that we get that representation.
I think when we talk about representation, it's obvious that positive representation can lead to a more fair and equitable society. People are more likely to engage with and feel connected to organisations and services that reflect their own experiences and identities. For younger generations, it's important for them to see representation as it expands their views on what they might achieve in their own personal life. Positive role models help show them that their aspirations are achievable. And I'm a firm believer of you only can be what you can see. However, representation needs to be carried out with genuineness and authenticity, avoiding tokenism and not just there to tick the EDI box, failing to provide real influence or equity.
Representation has been such an important part of my growth and development as an artist, as a writer. And that's because a lot of the times when you think about poetry or even the most celebrated film directors or screenwriters, growing up, a lot of the times they would be white males, and then you'll have females, and then there would be some trickles of representation. And even in the representation, the stories that would come through, even of blackness, didn't fully always feel like they represented me.
Underrepresented employees are those who belong to groups that have historically faced discrimination, marginalisation, or exclusion in the workplace, such as women, people of colour, the LGBTQ community, individuals with disabilities, and many more. Ethnic minorities are more likely to be unemployed because employers reject applications from non-white names. This holds back our communities from growth and expressing our God-given talents. How would you feel if you had a gift in sports management or film production, but no one will ever give you a chance to showcase that? It's frustrating and honestly disappointing to even feel such a way. Overall, about 1 in 8 of the working age population are from an ethnic minority background, yet these individuals make up only 10% of the workforce and hold only 6% of top management positions. As for underlying racism in schools, it's become more apparent as the years go by. 95% of young ethnic people report that they have heard and witnessed the use of racist language at school. 49% of ethnic individuals felt that racism was the biggest barrier to attaining success in school, while 50% said the biggest barrier was teacher perceptions of them, like being seen as too aggressive or too loud. Explain to me how my hair can be deemed as a distraction in class because I have braids or dreads. As ethnic minorities, our hair has always been our pride and joy. We use it to express ourselves and show the massive difference in cultures. It shouldn't be used as a tool to justify racism in schools or workplaces.
Future aspirations, what I want to see? Well, I want to see more people of colour in senior leadership roles and as key decision makers, especially in areas related to policy, governance and strategy. I think it's important that our leaders reflect the diversity of the community that they serve to ensure inclusivity and equitable decision making. Also, authentic representation that respects cultural integrity of the group being represented, moving away from stereotypes and generalizations.
I am passionate and driven to break down barriers for people of colours. Within schools, I aim to change the current curriculum, especially around the teaching of Black History Month. I believe we should be celebrating Black History Month, but in England, it's not something that is currently done effectively.
I think just anything positive overall. So being able to focus on even the minor positive things. So I think just overall anything that they can benefit on to produce more happiness, I think is just going to make me happier.
I want other people to see how young people can actually make changes, and how they think that we can't really make changes or we can't get our voices out there. I want them to see how we actually can, and we're so young, and maybe things that other people actually want to do, they can see how they can do it, and there's ways to do it and make change at a young age.
I think I want people to take away that we as people are people. Like, don't judge people by their colour, where they come from, or what they do, their language. Just see people as people, because people are beautiful in themselves.
I would like people to take away from this project more knowledge and be more educated on different religions, opinions, takes on things and ethnicities, and realise that not just their opinion is valid and that everybody has an opinion and are different in ways.
A challenge that was kind of near the start is probably having to speak about my own experiences, because like being vulnerable is not really something that I'm like used to, and like listening to other people is kind of like hard when it's like I don't really know how to deal with those situations. So having to speak about it myself in order to like understand the project is probably the hardest part.
This project wasn't about being a victim, but rather for young people to express their frustrations in the failing society they live in. My race isn't a choice, neither is where I'm from or how I speak, but we will embrace this and use it to our advantage. Before you deny us of an opportunity or discriminate us for our skin, remember we all bleed the same. Thank you for listening.